Bad Batch, episode number 2, aired on Disney Plus last Friday. It is called Cut and Run. And that has a lot to do with the fact that everybody's favorite deserter clone is back. Mr. Cut is back. Cut Lawquane, I think is his full name. And you may recognize him or you may not. You may have had to look it up, but he was also featured in the Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 10 episode, The Deserter. So that's where...
Right? I do remember that episode pretty well. It stuck out to me because I thought, what an interesting concept.
Right? Exactly. It's kind of cool to see that come full circle and everything, and see that he's got a family and that things are going okay for him until the Bad Batch shows up on his doorstep because they're on the run. And isn't that the case? Isn't that what always happens? Somebody like finally gets out of it. They start living the good life. It's like Avengers Endgame. Tony Stark is just living in his cabin. And then Captain America and Ant-Man and Black Widow show up and he's got to get sucked right back into it. So that's just how it goes, right? But this episode was pretty good. For the most part, after dealing with a 70-minute monstrosity of an episode that was episode 1, it just had so much going on in it. This shorter, more normal episode for this format of show was kind of a nice to get back to that. And it was very character driven. I'd say we had a lot of character development. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think that's necessary at this point because we don't know them that well. Mm-hmm. All we know is that Wrecker likes to wreck.
That's true. We know Wrecker likes to wreck, and
Hunter likes to hunt.
Crosshair likes to shoot things, especially Padawans.
And follow orders.
Making your own decisions, I think, is a big part of this episode, especially when it comes to Omega. We learn a little bit more about Omega and who she is. She's a clone, and there's a lot of theories floating around online that maybe potentially she's got some sort of Palpatine and some sort of Jango combination DNA in her. We had kind of talked about that on the first when we broke down episode number 1 of what we did, but people are putting photos of her and Palpatine from the Clone Wars side by side because they have a very similar looking hairstyle. So I think it's a pull. Obviously Palpatine is an easy choice to go with because we know that he's been messing around with clones and stuff like that, but I'm not getting any evil dark side vibes from Omega, at least not yet.
You never do at the beginning.
No, you don't. That's very true. First, they're very concerned with pod racing, and that's pretty much it. So we'll see what happens as this character continues to grow with us. So on The Mandalorian, Grogu and Din Djarin are both orphans, kind of. So I think that's what draws them together. I think that's where a lot of their bond lies, in taking care of each other. When it comes to Omega and the Bad Batch crew, they're all clones, and that is what drives them together and bonds them and everything. So I think it'll be really kind of nice to kind of see that relationship evolve on the show and everything. I think that'll be really cool. And seeing as that episode kind of moved on, seeing Hunter go from like almost yelling orders at Omega into being that more of like a parent figure to her, when she made the decision that she didn't want to go with the family and she instead wanted to stay with them because that's where she feels the safest. That's where she feels she belongs.
Yeah. Do you think this is kind of, I guess, a side note from the plot, her name Omega?
Yeah.
Like, do you think there's some kind of significance in that's essentially the name the Kaminoans gave her, and Omega is typically the end. Like, is she the perfect clone?
God,
as they might see, the pinnacle of cloning?
It could be. I mean, it's everything is created for a reason, right? So there's a reason why Omega exists. We kind of got a interesting vibe from her in episode 1 when she was able to pick up that blaster and pick off those guys without having ever picked up a blaster before. So that's interesting. But one of the things that we see is that the Empire is quickly taking control of the galaxy. Like, it seems like the Empire formed, The clones got reprogrammed with Order 66. They are way, way more hostile. They are way more, stormtrooper like, as far as, treating citizens with the level of respect that they're treating citizens, like, which is very little. They're acting a lot more like, police officers and things like that, rather than these military people. But the Empire is trying to keep people put, because you can't have people gather together and rise up in a rebellion if you're forcing them to stay in one place, right? So they start to establish these chain codes, which we see in this episode.
And that's what did we see them anywhere between now and the Mandalorian? Because that's what they have. They have chain codes for like the bounties on people, right?
Yeah, like so that you can track it, so you can keep track of literally where anybody is. So I think this is kind of like establishing this giant database that the galaxy has almost. So you know where everyone is, and you can't travel without having the chain code and everything. So I would say it's similar, I guess, to having like a passport, maybe, except for in a more darker Empire type way. But you can't go anywhere unless you have an Empire approved chain code. Like, you can't go anywhere. But yeah, no, it's just a way to keep tabs on where everybody is and how everybody is acting.